All people have the same human rights and freedoms. Our role as the Human Rights Commission is to promote and protect these rights.
In this video series, I'm looking at the way the New Zealand Human Rights Commission discriminates against men. In the last video, I showed the double standard of the Human Rights Commission. The Commission chooses not to explicitly protect the rights of men and boys, even though they advocate for explicit protection of human rights, and they explicitly protect the rights of women and girls. Just to emphasize the hypocrisy of the Commission, here's the Chief Commissioner passionately criticizing a proposed law that only provides explicit protection of human rights for one group and ignores everyone else.
In other words, the bill explicitly acknowledges the rights and freedoms of public service employees, and that is just as it should be. But the bill's grave shortcoming is that it does not require public service employees to pay any explicit attention to the rights and freedoms of everyone else in Aotearoa, New Zealand. In short, explicit human rights are good for public service employees, but not for everyone else. I have to say that this is the most spectacular double standard I've seen for a very long time.
In this video, we are looking at systemic bias and structural discrimination at the Commission. The Commission is part of larger systems which are biased against men and boys. The Human Rights Act requires the Commission to monitor the government's compliance with international human rights treaties and agreements. There are 3 significant documents regarding women's rights and none for men. They are the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, or CEDAW, the Beijing Platform for Action, and the Sustainable Development Goals.
CEDAW. The Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women is an international human rights treaty that focuses on women's rights and women's issues worldwide. The CEDAW Convention is one of the most widely ratified United Nations treaties worldwide. 188 countries have ratified the CEDAW Convention. The state party to the CEDAW Convention must act with due diligence to prevent discrimination, prohibit discrimination, identify discrimination and provide redress, impose sanctions against discriminatory acts, promote women's rights and equality through proactive measures, and accelerate de facto equality.
In 1995, over 17,000 representatives from 189 nations met in Beijing, China, at the Fourth World Conference on Women. The meeting resulted in the unanimous adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. The agreement set strategic objectives to advance women and girls' rights in 12 critical areas of concern: poverty, education and training, health, violence, armed conflict, economy, power and decision-making, institutional mechanisms, human rights, media, environment, and the girl child.
So the goal of SDG 5 is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. This means providing women and girls with equal access to education, healthcare, decent work and representation in political and economic decision-making processes. It includes ensuring universal access to sexual and reproductive health and affording women equal rights to economic resources, such as land and property. To achieve this empowerment, all societies must address structural issues, such as unfair social norms and attitudes, as well as develop progressive legal frameworks that promote equality between women and men.
The broad scope of the document means the Commission must comprehensively monitor women's rights. How comprehensive? The Beijing Platform for Action is nearly 200 pages long. There are no equivalent documents for men, so the Commission does not monitor men's human rights issues. For example, they couldn't tell me what the most important human rights issues for men are when I asked them. The Commission is also a UN-certified national human rights institution. This means they are expected to be involved in UN meetings and events, including events specifically for women's rights, like reviews of CEDAW and the Commission on the Status of Women.
And today we have with us Ms. Jackie Blue, Equal Employment Opportunities Commissioner from New Zealand Human Rights Commission. Ms. Blue, you have 10 minutes, please.
Thank you. Ena mana, ena reo, ratingama, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. It's an honour and a privilege to be representing the New Zealand Human Rights Commission in my role as Equal Employment Opportunities and Women's Rights Commissioner.
This year was CSW 63, which is the 63rd session of CSW, and the national human rights institutions of Australia, Afghanistan, Georgia, Germany, Northern Ireland, New Zealand, and the Philippines attended. And at CSW, there are many, many organisations, many events, and it's actually quite a stimulating environment for national human rights institutions. So it really is a learning opportunity. It's a relationship building opportunity. The other outcome, if you like, another important outcome, I think, is the development and collaboration and cooperation of national human rights institutions on women and girls issues.
The Commission is also a member of the Regional Organisation for National Human Rights Institutions, the Asia Pacific Forum. As a member of the APF, the Commission has committed to prioritising the rights of women and girls.
The Asia Pacific Forum actually led the discussion and led the focus on women and girls' human rights at the international level.
The rights of women and girls should be a priority for national human rights institutions, I think for the very simple reason that women's rights are human rights.
Globally, human rights commissions have made a commitment through what is called the Amman Declaration, which was a declaration made by over 70 national human rights institutions in Amman, Jordan, in which they committed to prioritise the human rights of women and girls. And they do so by focusing on issues that are specific to women and girls, such as violence against women.
The Commission also had input into the APF's Guide for Gender Mainstreaming. Gender mainstreaming is the strategy for achieving gender equality, which sounds good for both women and men. But here's Ros Noonan, former New Zealand Chief Human Rights Commissioner, explaining that the APF understands gender mainstreaming and gender equality to mean genders other than men.
Unless it is mainstreamed in the work of a national human rights institution, we won't be able to tackle effectively the human rights issues that we're supposed to be addressing. Well, I think that's asking just the basic question in whatever you're doing: where do women and girls fit? Where do gender minorities fit? It's as simple as that. Are they visible?
The Commission has limited say in the external structures it exists within, but it can choose to conform to them and support the discrimination in the system, or to do the right thing by applying the principles of equality and non-discrimination. The Commission has chosen to follow the crowd and not respond to the issues created by a biased system. The Commission has a Women's Rights Commissioner. Structurally, a Women's Rights Commissioner is an important interface to the government, other parts of the human rights system, and civil society. A Women's Rights Commissioner provides connections and networking for those groups. The role means the media have someone to contact for expertise and comment. It provides a signal to the public that the Commission takes women's rights seriously. Without a Men's Rights Commissioner to provide these systemic benefits, the protection of men's rights suffers, and it signals that the Human Rights Commission doesn't take men's rights seriously. The Commission also has advisors for groups like disabled people, LGBT, Pacifica, and women, but there is no advisor for men's rights. The Commission is rightly critical of structural discrimination in other areas, for example, the discrimination against Maori in the justice system, but refuses to consider that they are part of a discriminatory system when it comes to protecting the rights of men and boys. So why does this matter? The Commission should be protecting everyone's rights without discrimination. If the Commission is not protecting the rights of men and boys, who will? The Commission's discrimination of men and boys has far-reaching impacts. It signals to other organisations that this is the norm and is acceptable, or even that it is best practice. In fact, this is why I'm focusing on the Human Rights Commission. If it chooses to do the right thing, the Commission can put the rights of men and boys on the map. It can give legitimacy and weight to human rights of men and boys. This means we can make more progress to addressing some of the serious issues facing men and boys, like infant circumcision, bias in the justice system, male suicide, and more. Thank you for watching this video. In the next video, we will look at the discrimination committed by the Commission in its day-to-day activities.